In this week's episode of One Piece, Luffy shows the fighters of Kurita Coliseum that he has the chops to throw down in gladiatorial combat. Everybody wants a piece of the stretchy scallywag this week, and they're all gonna get to take a big old bite. This week's episode was also monumental in that it was the 650th episode of One Piece, and that's just freaking insane when you think about it, and definitely worth celebrating. The good thing is that this week's episode of One Piece was awesome. It was well-paced, it had a lot of cool revelations, some funny character moments, a small cameo from Blackbeard, the badass pirate of darkness, not to mention some Rebecca backstory, a little bit of fan service, some action, and Luffy being goofy. This was a full package explosion of One Piece awesomeness, my friends, and I loved it. So let's just talk about the highlights. The first half of the episode is a little bit of downtime and some funny moments. The ring has been destroyed because Luffy just sent Chinchou flying into it, and they're going to be able to fix it up in about 15 minutes. And even in that short amount of time, it didn't take but 1 second for one person in the audience to start bitching about it. But that's beside the point. We go to the scene where Luffy is being confronted by pretty much all of his foes, which have some sort of beef with him in some form or fashion. You have Cavendish, who just wants to kill him. You have Don Chinchou, who now has had his weird little pointy head brought back, and because of this, he wants to thank Luffy. But at the same time, you have Bartolomeo, who's easily the most interesting part of this scene in the beginning of the episode, in that we learn why he's so obsessed with Luffy. And it's because he's so obsessed with Luffy. Yes, Bartolomeo has something of a hard-on for Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates, and that's because he was sort of inspired by him. Way back in the day, remember that scene when Buggy was getting ready to decapitate Luffy, and then suddenly he was saved by plot convenience? Yeah, it was that episode. And they even do a whole flashback, they reanimate it, and it makes you realize how different the art styles actually looked from back in the day and the way they look now. But still, I like it. It was pretty cool. It was a nice little reminder, and it shows you how long Bartolomeo has actually been active. And he went on to become a pirate and was inspired by Luffy and followed all of his big events. Everything from Impel Down, Enies Lobby, all that jazz. The big battle at Marineford. So he's just obsessed with Luffy to the point where he almost can't even confront him. And this is going to be a big weakness for him. And this is just another candidate for new Straw Hat Pirates. And, you know, that could even go for Chinchou at this point, but I think one of the bigger candidates is going to be Rebecca. And she was one of the main focuses this week, and I was really hoping they were going to get to her soon, because she was like the namesake of this week's episode, and a lot of times when they do that in One Piece, they'll be like, Luffy versus this dude, and then it'll be like all this bullshit, and then the last 5 minutes will just be like Luffy fighting this person. And luckily, there was a little bit more backstory for Rebecca. Apparently she lost her mother in some weird accident that they're probably just going to show us in weird chunks. Obviously, her father is the toy soldier. She somehow does not remember that that's her father, and he's just sort of aimlessly protecting her. So what's the deal with Rebecca anyway? Aside from being absolutely smoking hot, she's actually kind of a badass and complex character. There's a scene where she helps out Luffy and brings him down to this underground prison, where they're going to have a little bit of a lunch, but this all actually leads to a scene where she's trying to trick Luffy, and suddenly these prisoners grab Luffy as she's literally about to kill him with this massive sword, but he just takes her out immediately, while still eating, by the way. And I really love the scene where he takes that long pause right before he takes a bite. It's intimidating and very funny at the same time, but he's obviously not going to hurt Rebecca. He wants to learn a little bit more about her, and we have to learn a little bit more about her backstory as well. The main thing to take away from the scene is that Rebecca wants to do everything she can to help the toy soldier. She wants to repay him for everything she's done for her in the past. And I really can't wait to learn a little bit more about her. Frankly, I think she's one of the best candidates for new Straw Hat Pirate, if only for the fact that we need another female member of the group, and wouldn't it be awesome to have a badass, like, warrior princess on board? I think that would be really nice to spice things up. Also, she just seems like a really interesting character. Even with all that other crazy stuff going on this week, my favorite scene was when Luffy was running away from all of his opponents with Rebecca. There was this sudden scene where I had this massive chill just go down my spine when I heard Blackbeard's laugh, and you can see that it was actually Jesus Burgess talking on his snail phone to Blackbeard, and this is when Luffy and Blackbeard have a small confrontation with each other, just sort of sizing each other up, you know, just sort of saying, you're never gonna take the devil fruit, I'm gonna take the devil fruit, blah, 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 blah. If anything, it's just really, really spine-tingling. That's the only way I can put it. It just gets my, like, fanboy radar going crazy when I see stuff like that, because I think Blackbeard is one of the best characters in the entire series. I wholeheartedly believe he's going to be the final villain, bad guy, boss, whatever you want to call him, of One Piece. He's just the perfect villain for Luffy. He's like the evil version of Luffy, the antithesis of the Straw Hat Pirates, if you will. And that's why I really just want to see them clash. Especially this fight that we all know is going to happen between Jesus Burgess and Luffy, which, oh my god, I can't even imagine where that's going to go, especially because I want to see Jesus fight, because he looks like a luchador, but I don't know if he's actually going to fight like that, or if he's just going to have brute strength, if he has some sort of special devil fruit ability or hockey. I'm really excited for that. What I really will say is this was a great episode of One Piece. So what's the rundown on this week's episode? Well, the animation and the artwork was sort of all over the place, but it was still really erratic, and there were a lot of really cool, swift-moving action scenes. In the beginning, there was a lot of goofiness from Bartolomeo in the scene where Chinjao was just destroying everything with his newly reformed cone head. And then there's the scene at the end with Rebecca. Right when Luffy started to, defend himself from her attack, you could just tell, like, the animation quality in that last couple minutes just went crazy, especially when they were focusing on Rebecca when she was crying and getting all emotional. That just looked really, really well done and really high quality, which is something I want to see more from the series. The actual story this week was all over the place. There were a lot of really cool revelations, mostly about Bartolomeo, getting to see that Blackbeard is keeping tabs on the tournament, and of course getting to learn a little bit more about Rebecca, who's clearly going to be a very important character in this arc. So this is an episode that is definitely worth checking out, if only for all of these really crazy important moments. So I loved this one. I think this was a full package episode, a little slow in the beginning, and some parts in the middle could have been trimmed up a little bit, but otherwise, I loved this episode. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Check it out, guys. Cool episode. Before you guys leave, make sure and tell me what you thought about this week's episode of One Piece. Did you have any favorite moments this week? What did you think about Bartolomeo and Rebecca's backstory? And do you have a candidate for who's going to be the next Straw Hat Pirate? Please tell me with your comments below. And remember, before you leave, how about hitting that like button? It's incredibly easy to do. It gives our video a thumbs up, and it really helps them out tremendously. But the best way to help them is to simply watch our videos and to subscribe to the channel. It's really easy, guys. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We post a lot of really cool articles and weird, funny meme bullshit that you guys on the internet just love. Remember, guys, you can also donate directly to the channel if you would like. It is completely optional. But that concludes this review today. I will see you next time. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.